Jonathan Hatami, Deputy DA for LA County and a relentless advocate for children. And it's not just anecdotal. There's data that supports this, of course. The Children and Family Services Department talks about the Antelope Valley having relatively 110,000 kids, the smallest area that they serve, that they divide the county into different areas, yet it has the largest number of reported deaths of kids under the age of 5. What is it about the Antelope Valley where this is happening?
I think number one, I think a lot of politicians don't care about the Antelope Valley. It's sort of out of sight, out of mind for them. And so I think they don't get the proper resources that other areas of LA County do. I think you have a Palmdale Police Station and a Lancaster Police Station that are short-staffed. You have a district attorney's office out there that's very short-staffed. The Department of Children and Family Services, their offices out there are not only short-staffed, they've had problems with DCFS regarding Antelope Valley and North County for years, for over a decade. We have a lot of children who live out there that are not getting the resources that they should get. They're not provided with after-school programs. They're not provided with employment opportunities. And so you really have a large group of children who are being left out and really need to be looked after. I think also there's a big issue with drugs out in the Antelope Valley. For the longest time it was meth. Now you have a major fentanyl crisis out there in the Antelope Valley, and you don't have a lot of programs and resources for individuals who are addicted to drugs. And a lot of those individuals have children, have kids. And so I think people need to think about the trauma that so many of these families are feeling as a result of losing a loved one. These grandparents who are losing their loved one, aunts and uncles who are losing loved ones. And children are our most important resource. They're our most important group and most vulnerable group as well. And so hopefully people take a look at that. It's important.
Yeah, so you have, for example, so many of them are killed by caregivers, in particular either fathers or the mother's boyfriend. Tell me about that dynamic. What is it about that in particular? And is that kind of a situation where there's just a lot of that sort of family dynamic in the Antelope Valley?
So I think that a lot of people move out to the Antelope Valley already with economic issues. The housing out there is somewhat cheaper. And so I think they're looking to have a fresh start somewhere. And so they move out there with already economic issues. Many of them are single moms. And so you have a lot of kids being raised by single moms. And I think a lot of these moms end up choosing a boyfriend over choosing their children. And so you have a lot of cases, Gabriel Fernandez, Anthony Avalos, Noah Quattro, cases where moms chose their boyfriend over their own kids. And you also had a Department of Children and Family Services that made a lot of mistakes as far as looking at that. They didn't notice the red flags that need to be noticed in those type of situations and those type of relationships. And so you had a lot of children who were being abused. Also, I think Antelope Valley is large. And so I think people, it's sort of like the Wild West. And I think sometimes people feel that they can do things to individuals and no one is going to know about it. Whereas down in LA in the city, there's more people kind of see things more. And so I think a lot of times children get abused, and for days or even months, nobody knows about that at all. And I think that's a big issue. And so I think that there's been a lot of problems up there in the Antelope Valley, and they continue to happen. I think, over the last decade, I've been doing child abuse cases, and the majority of my cases are out in the Antelope Valley.
Is it the kind of case when you talk about community, for example, people you maybe don't notice? Is it the people don't notice, or is there kind of a thing where I'll keep to my business? People just mind their own business, and even when it comes to kids, they don't consider that part of their business.
So I think we are constantly always telling people that if you see something, say something. I think sometimes in certain communities, people see things and just don't say anything about it. They want to keep quiet. They don't say much about it. I think Antelope Valley is so spread out that sometimes that does happen. I think that there are children up there who are being abused and no one wants to talk about it, no one wants to say anything about it. But that's the same thing with domestic violence. For a long time, we didn't talk about domestic violence, even though we knew it was happening. And I think people need to look at child abuse as the same thing. Child abuse is domestic violence, and people do need to talk about it. People do need to pay attention. I think the Antelope Valley also, a lot of people move out there. So maybe it's not a community that's been out there for a long period of time. And so maybe that it does affect the issue regarding if you know who your neighbor is And whereas down in LA, maybe people have had roots down there for longer periods of time, and people have a more vested interest in what's going on. And I think that's another issue. Also, there's a language barrier. Palmdale is over 50% Latino, and so I think that there's a lot of individuals who move out to Palmdale, and I think that politicians need to pay attention to that. And they do need resources. Antelope Valley matters. The people out there matter. The kids out there matter. And I think it's important to look at that as well.
All right, Jonathan Hatami, we're going to come right back with you in just a couple of minutes. Stay right there. Welcome back. We continue our conversation with Deputy District Attorney for Los Angeles County, Jonathan Hatami. You prosecute a lot of child abuse, neglect, and unfortunately homicide cases. The Department of Children and Family Services, they gave us a statement earlier on in this program. They said that they're adding resources to the area and that the actual numbers of child deaths in the AV are going down despite the headwinds that they're facing. What is your sense of the DCFS response and what they're doing?
So as far as child deaths going down, I haven't seen it. I don't think the public has seen it. We've had 3 deaths in the last 8 months regarding fentanyl, and the Department of Children and Family Services was involved in that.
You mean these were families that were known to DCFS where the kids ended up dying of fentanyl exposure?
Yes. I have new cases out there where the children were involved in the Department of Children and Family Services and dependency. And so here's the other thing. 1 child death is too much. And so when they say child deaths are going down, I'd like to hear them say even 1 child death that's monitored by the Department of Children and Family Services is too much. Every child matters. That's the first thing, I think, when I hear that. The second thing is, after Gabriel, there were all these things instituted regarding the Department of Children and Family Services. And I always hear that they're putting more resources into the department up in Antelope Valley. They're paying social workers more money. Well, they need to keep doing that. We need more good social workers in Antelope Valley who actually care, who want to really help a lot of the kids out there. We have so many families who move out there, and I think people then don't pay attention to them for a while. And so you have a lot of movement where people do move to the Antelope Valley. And so we need more resources to be able to monitor those families to make sure that they're getting the resources that they deserve.
Yeah, you're talking about this 3 deaths recently involving fentanyl. How big a problem is that now for children in terms of their safety?
Fentanyl is a major epidemic in the country, and it is a major epidemic in the Antelope Valley. So many kids consider their home a safe place, but a lot of these adults are using drugs and fentanyl at home where kids have access to that. And so people need to be aware that even a small amount of fentanyl can kill a child. Even if a child inhales, somebody's smoking fentanyl and they inhale that, they can die as a result of inhaling fentanyl. Parents in the Antelope Valley need to know that. We need to have more resources regarding that. I could tell you this too, we sort of stopped prosecuting even the lower level drug misdemeanors in the Antelope Valley. That's a major problem because a lot of individuals then kept using drugs. A lot of individuals weren't available to get resources regarding that. And so you have a large amount of drugs out there in the Antelope Valley, and a large amount of individuals aren't in the system. We don't know that there's problems, and they're not getting the help that they deserve.
Yeah. You don't just put people in jail. You also are an advocate for the loved ones, for the grandparents, as you spoke of. How do you strike that balance? How do how does that affect your job and you personally?
So first off, you have to have empathy. You have to realize that so many victims and their family members, that's trauma. And many times they don't recover from that. If you lose a child, I'm a dad, so if you lose a child, I don't think you ever can recover from that. And so I think being a good prosecutor, you do have to recognize that there's no winning in my job. Nobody wins because usually a child is dead and a family is destroyed. But can you bring a small sense of justice for that child and their family? Can you show the community that that child mattered? Can you try to educate the community into seeing that we need to help kids and make sure that they're safe? And then can we try to help people recover from trauma as much as we can? That's a huge part of my job. Even though most people see me prosecuting cases, I think it's more being a human and being a dad and showing that I care.
This is part of your history as well. I mean, this is personal for you, isn't it?
It's very personal. I was a victim of child abuse. I was also raised by a single mom. I also got in trouble when I was a teenager. And so I know some of the things that other individuals are going through. I can relate to some of that. And, you know, it was a lifelong, I think, dream of mine to be able to fight for children. And the fact that I get to do that, I consider myself blessed. And I'll keep doing that to the best of my ability as long as I can.
All right. And the back, really quickly, the community can help, right? If people see something that's out of place or doesn't look right with kids, they got to call.
So I love the Antelope Valley community, and I think that hopefully everybody sees how great of a community that is. There are thousands of children up there that need our help, and if somebody sees something, they need to say something. Every child matters. If you see something, please say something.
All right. Jonathan Hatami, Deputy DA for Los Angeles County, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Eyewitness Newsmakers, we'll be right back.